The information contained in this video is intended for educational purposes. We are not responsible for any damage to your device resulting from improper disassembly or installation. Proceed at your own risk. This is Mike from GoCellPhoneRepair.com, and today we're going to replace the screen on a Sony Xperia Z1. You can see the bottom right hand corner of this touchscreen has been cracked badly enough that we need to go ahead and replace it. So you'll want to have a T5 Torx driver on hand. Now the funny thing is, I've had people tell me they used a T6, which is really strange. We actually used a T5, so obviously you want to use the one that fits the bit the best. We'll start by heating up the rear panel on the phone. This one has quite a bit of adhesive that's meant to pretty much make this a waterproof or water resistant phone. So you'll notice the divot at the top here will allow you to pry inside the panel. This panel is going to look like it comes off pretty easy. You might have to work at yours a little bit more because we did take the panel off this previously to the repair. So once you go around the edge with a small pry tool, you can remove the rear panel. And on the inside, we're going to have a couple of things that we need to remove. One is a set of Torx bits, and there are quite a few, so you want to make sure you get all of these removed. Again, it's either going to be a T5 or a T6. In our experience, it was actually a T5 that was the correct size. So again, just make sure nothing's spinning around and slipping inside. You want to make sure that you have the right size driver when you remove these screws. From here, you're going to have a small flex cable at the top end of the phone. And if you haven't already done so, make sure that you remove your SIM card and SIM card tray. And then we'll go ahead and disconnect this flex cable at the top, as it is actually part of the rear panel that we're going to remove next. If you take a thin pry tool, you should be able to work around the edges here. Again, you're going to run into some adhesive underneath, so do take your time. And unfortunately, this adhesive is not likely to come off in one piece, so more than likely you will have to replace it. I recommend the 1mm double-sided adhesive tape that you will find on the Go Cell Phone Repair site under the adhesive section. If you find something else that works, that's fine, but what I like about that is it's already kind of cut to size, so it's very easy to get down in these really tiny crevices that we need to get glued back together, because, not glued rather, but adhesive. We don't want any moisture leaking on the inside. But as you see here, when he pulls the frame off, this stuff just kind of, it gets real messy. It's very difficult, I would say, if not impossible, to remove it all in one piece. So chances are you're not going to be able to reuse the old adhesive on this one. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and remove the battery. So there's a flex cable right here in the center of this funny looking cable that kind of goes in a C shape. Once you've unplugged that, you don't have to worry about the other flex cables. If you wanted to pull the logic board, there are two adjacent cables that can be disconnected, but mainly the one in the center here, once you've unplugged that one flex cable, there's kind of a plastic edge over here that one of the Torx screws went through on the right hand side, you'll see, and if you pry right there, it'll just kind of pop the whole battery out. No adhesive under the battery, surprisingly, despite the fact that there's adhesive all over the rest of the phone, especially these, I don't want to call them metallic, but these very thick, very strong flex cables on the inside of the phone. You can actually lift the speaker assembly up from the bottom. You don't have to disconnect the antenna wires. You just want to kind of get that out of the way so that you have access to the cables underneath, so that we can unplug everything that is attached to the display itself. And you'll see that there's actually some metallic foil tape. We're going to reuse this later on. So once you remove your LCD, don't throw it away, don't dispose of it just yet. We are going to pull some of the parts off the old one and transfer over to the new. You will also find that using a lot of adhesive on this phone is going to be very helpful because of a lot of heat on the phone. You'll also find that using a lot of heat on the phone is going to be helpful because of the amount of adhesive that they used here. And there's a speaker down here that was underneath that speaker assembly, or interface with the speaker, that is. And we're going to have to kind of pry this out from inside the frame, in addition to a very small black piece right in the center. So if you watch closely here in the video, you want to take your time and very carefully get these kind of maneuvered out from the lip that goes around the edge of the frame. And then we'll have yet another piece that needs to be peeled back on the inside. So again, try to keep this warm. If you have a heat gun on hand, that's the best way to go about it. It's going to make your life a lot easier and lessen the chances that you break anything. You can see we kind of went under the edge of this cable with the dulled blade just enough to get it started, and from here you'll switch over, of course, to your pry tool. That way we don't cut anything or damage it in the process. And I always like to point out that is not a sharpened razor blade that we use. It's already been dulled, so there's not much of an edge to it. Very small chance of cutting anything with that blade. On the front, initially we tried to pry at the top, and you'll see here that this glass does not withstand very much pressure. Even after heating it up quite thoroughly, when he went to pry up at the upper end where the earpiece is located, the glass cracked immediately. So I would recommend against prying where you're about to see right now, because this tends to be kind of a weak spot for the glass itself. You see a little bit of tension and it already breaks. So what I recommend doing is going along the sides. Right about the middle of the phone anywhere should work fine as far as getting started. And once you get underneath, it's not too tough to work your way the rest of the way around, as long as you keep applying heat as you're going. And once we've got most of the top end released, you'll run into quite a bit of adhesive again at the bottom. So I would say just take your time, and the more you keep this in one piece, the easier it's going to be to work with. Less chances you're going to have glass shards going all over the place. And of course, be careful, because this stuff gets stuck in your hand sometimes. It's kind of hard to get it out. We raised the, basically angle the screen down towards the bottom this way, lifting it from the top, and we can just pull the flex cable right through the mid frame. You can see there's quite a bit of wasted space at the top of this screen. It's kind of strange that they did that. Next thing we want to do is prep the surface for the new adhesive. All this old adhesive is going to have to come off. So again, as long as you've got a pretty warm surface to work with, you can usually peel this stuff by hand. If you have to heat it up occasionally, that will make it a little bit easier. But the main thing is we want to make sure that all of the glass and all the old adhesive has been removed. And you can see he took the blade again there and just kind of worked around the edges where we had stuff that was sticking to the frame. Once we get that done, we'll be able to go ahead and put some new adhesive down here. Now this piece you can actually buy separately. They do sell a pre-cut adhesive. I will include the link on the page that you'll find in the video description, and that will show you where to buy it. It's much easier to buy this whole sheet all at once. However, we decided to use some heavy-duty adhesive that we typically use for iPads. Again, this comes in different widths. You can get it anywhere from 1 millimeter all the way up to 12 millimeters, which is about a ½ inch. So whatever you're working with, if you run into a situation where you need something that's extremely sticky, this orange tape tends to work the best. And I'll spare you the actual cutting process, but you can see we've got a width here that's already cut to about the same size on the bottom of the phone. So we'll go ahead and apply this all the way around. We obviously working with different widths the whole time, but it makes your life a lot easier if you've already got this stuff in strips on a roll, basically. Once we've got the new adhesive applied, we'll have to go around and, of course, remove the wax paper when we are ready to install the LCD. So we'll speed this up here a little bit. And again, the main thing is make sure there's no debris inside this part of the phone, because if you put a screen down on top of something, obviously we're going to have some problems later on, if not immediately. And we do like to warm up the adhesive a little bit. It tends to make it stick a lot better during installation. So if you've got your heat gun handy, I'd recommend you run over this once or twice just to get it nice and warm, flexible before you install the new assembly. And again, remember, we've got some parts from the old display that we're going to warm up with the heat gun, peel them off, and transfer them over to the new parts. So these typically will act to prevent grounding, or there'll be some sort of insulation. But the main thing is, when you get your new part, if it doesn't look identical to the replacement part, to the original part, you want to make sure that you take any pieces that were on the old one and move them over to the new one. Most of this stuff is there for a very specific reason, and failure to transfer it can cause you a lot of trouble later on down the line when we power the phone up. And you'll notice that these pop connectors can be a little tricky to line up straight, so take your time, make sure not to force them. Anytime they're not lined up straight and you push too hard, it is possible to damage them, and that would be bad news. So patience pays off for this one. One other thing that I want to point out here is, after you've got that speaker assembly down at the bottom, be very careful and make sure that these antenna wires go back into the same position they were before you disassembled it fully. That is, there's a very specific location for these wires to go. You can kind of see how they tuck in there. And if you don't get them in the right spot, you end up pinching them with another part of the phone. In this case, it's not as dangerous as with some other types of phones, but you get the battery in the wrong spot on top of one of those wires, or part of the frame, or one of the screws goes through it, and you can actually damage those, and that will definitely cause you some problems with the reception on either the radio or the Wi-Fi unit for the phone. So again, just make sure those are tucked into the correct place. We can go ahead and install the battery at this point. If you did disconnect those other flex cables, make sure you plug those in. And of course, the last thing that we're going to plug in is going to be the battery itself. Right, from here we will go ahead and install the rear panel, the rear frame that is, and put our Torx back in. I like to recommend that you work your way around the edges here. Be sure that everything lines up flush and snaps together properly. There shouldn't be any open spaces between those two panels. And of course, plug that flex connector in at the top. And from here we can go ahead and put all of the screws back in. All right, from here we'll go ahead and turn it on. make sure that the LCD touchscreen and pretty much everything else on the phone is working. I typically cut off the video at this point, but I thought just to be different this time, I'm going to go ahead and run through the full test here. So after we perform a repair, we'll typically install the SIM card, memory card, and check all the functionality on the phone. Again, we want to make sure that the touchscreen is working 100%. We'll check the front and rear facing cameras, the Wi-Fi unit, volume controls, power button, make a test call, check the speakerphone, and so on. That way we don't have to worry later on about something being disconnected or not installed properly. And once we get finished here and we're certain that everything's working, that's pretty much it. And time to move on to the next project. And there you have it. If you found the video helpful, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and feel free to share it on the social media platform of your choice. For more information, visit us on the web at gocellphonerepair.com. Thanks for watching.